When we begin speaking about the history of the island of Dajjal, we must begin with an important reminder. In Islam, this is not a story that comes from folklore, fantasy, or the imagination of later generations. This is a narration rooted in our sacred tradition, preserved in authentic hadith, and transmitted to us through one of the most fascinating reports about the signs of the last day. The foundation of this entire discussion goes back to the well-known account of Tamim al-Dari, a companion of the Prophet _FDFA, who before embracing Islam had been a Christian traveler and seafarer. He was a man familiar with journeys, with distant lands, with the mysteries of the sea. And it was through one of those journeys that he encountered something so strange, so unsettling, that when he later accepted Islam, he came to the Prophet _FDFA and shared what he had witnessed. And what is truly remarkable is that the Prophet _FDFA did not dismiss the account. Rather, he gathered the people and publicly confirmed it. This is what gives the narration its extraordinary weight. The Prophet _FDFA himself told the companions that Tamim's story matched what he had already been teaching them about the Dajjal. So, from the very beginning, the significance of this report is not simply that a man saw something unusual on an island. The significance is that the messenger of Allah _FDFA validated it, connected it to revelation, and used it to teach the Ummah about one of the greatest trials that humanity will ever face. This is why, when Muslims speak about the island of Dajjal, we are not inventing a dramatic legend. We are referring to a serious, authenticated narration found in our tradition. The hadith paints the scene vividly. A group of sailors caught in the waves for days, driven helplessly by the sea, until they arrive at a strange island. There, they encounter something bizarre, something unsettling, something beyond ordinary human experience. And from that moment, the story moves from being a travel account to becoming a window into the unseen future. Now, as believers, we must appreciate the balance here. Islam teaches us to respect the unseen without exaggerating it, and to believe in authentic reports without turning them into entertainment. The purpose of this narration is not to satisfy curiosity alone. It is not there so that people can obsess over maps and coordinates and theories. Rather, it serves as a warning, a sign, and a preparation. The history of this island begins not with geography, but with revelation. It begins not with speculation, but with an authentic testimony affirmed by the Prophet _FDFA himself. And that is why this story demands from us not fascination alone, but faith. Once we understand that this account is firmly rooted in authentic hadith, the next part of the story becomes even more gripping, because now we are no longer asking whether the event matters. We are asking what exactly was seen on that island, and why those details were preserved for us with such precision. Tamim al-Dari and his companions were not on a planned voyage of discovery. They were sailors caught in a storm, tossed by the sea for nearly a month, carried without control until they finally reached an island at the time of sunset. Imagine the exhaustion, the uncertainty, the fear of not knowing where you are, and then stepping onto unfamiliar land with no idea what awaits you. It is already the setting of a mystery, but what they found there transformed that mystery into something far more profound. The first thing they encountered was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. The hadith describes it as being covered in so much hair that they could not tell its front from its back. It was so strange, so unusual, that they immediately asked, "What are you?" And this creature responded, "I am al-Jassasa." Even the name itself carries the meaning of spying, gathering information, moving between hidden matters. It then directed them toward a man in a monastery or structure on the island, telling them that he was eager to hear their news. Notice how unsettling this is. They arrive on an unknown island, meet an unknown creature, and are then guided to an unknown prisoner who is somehow waiting for news from the outside world. This is not an ordinary encounter. This is a scene designed to shake the heart. When they entered and saw the man, the hadith tells us that he was enormous in size, heavily chained, bound in a way that made it clear he was being restrained by divine decree. And before he even identifies himself, he begins asking questions, very specific questions. He asks about the date palms of Basin, are they still bearing fruit? He asks about the lake of Tiberias, does it still contain water? He asks about the spring of Zughar, does it still flow, and do people still cultivate from it? Then he asks the most important question of all, what has happened to the unlettered prophet? Has he emerged? Has he been obeyed? Has he left Makkah and settled elsewhere? These are not random questions, they are signs. They are markers. They indicate that this chained being is not disconnected from the world. He is watching it, waiting for its appointed time, measuring the unfolding of history according to the decree of Allah. And when Tamim and his companions answer these questions, the prisoner then reveals who he is. He is al-Masih ad-Dajjal. In that moment, the entire island changes in meaning. It is no longer just a remote land in the sea. It becomes a place of waiting, a place tied to prophecy, a place where one of the greatest trials of humanity is being held back until Allah permits his release. And this is what makes the island so terrifying, not its isolation, but what it contains. Now once we hear this narration, and once we absorb the sheer weight of what Tamim al-Dari Arabic, Rot Arabic, Daida Arabic, Yet Arabic, Alif Arabic, Lam Arabic, Lam Arabic, Ha Arabic, Tain Arabic, Noon Arabic, have witnessed, the natural question that comes to the mind is this. How did the scholars of Islam understand this island? What did they say about it? And this is where we need maturity, balance, and discipline. Because one of the problems of our times is that people hear a mysterious narration, and immediately they want to turn it into a conspiracy theory, a documentary, a viral map, or some dramatic secret hidden from the world. But our scholars did not approach sacred knowledge in that way. They approached it with reverence, with caution, and with intellectual honesty. The majority of scholars, when reading this hadith in its plain and obvious meaning, accepted that the Dajjal is a real being, physically existing, and currently restrained by the will of Allah in a place unknown to us. This is the straightforward reading of the hadith. Tamim did not see a vision. He did not narrate a dream. He described an actual journey, an actual island, an actual encounter, and the Prophet letter F.D.F.A. affirmed it. So many scholars said, we believe exactly what the hadith says. There is a real Dajjal, there is a real imprisonment, and there is a real appointed time for his release. And in that sense, the island is understood literally, a hidden place somewhere in Allah's creation, inaccessible until the divine decree unfolds. But here is where the beauty of our scholarly tradition comes in. Even while accepting the hadith, many scholars refuse to go beyond what the text itself states. They did not claim certainty about where the island is. They did not pretend to know its coordinates. They did not say, it must be here, or it must be there. Why? Because the Prophet letter F.D.F.A. did not tell us its exact location in a way that we can definitively establish today. There are narrations that indicate directions, there are discussions about eastern lands or distant seas, and there are opinions scattered across history, but none of them rise to the level of certainty that would allow a believer to speak with confidence, and this restraint is itself a lesson. In Islam, not every mystery is meant to be solved by human curiosity. There were also some later discussions among scholars about whether certain elements of the narration carry symbolic or deeper meanings, especially when reflecting on the role of al-Jasasa and the nature of the signs being mentioned. But even then, the mainstream Sunni approach remained clear. Affirm what is authentically reported, Do not deny what the Prophet letter FDA confirmed, and do not build entire doctrines on speculation. This is the balance. We are neither naive sensationalists nor are we reckless skeptics. We do not mock the unseen, and we do not exploit it. And that is the real scholarly legacy surrounding this island. Belief without exaggeration, acceptance without fantasy, and humility before what Allah chose not to fully reveal. So the believer is not asked to find the island, he is asked to learn the lesson. And now, after all of this, after the mystery of the island, after the strange encounter, after the chained prisoner, after the questions about the signs of the world, we arrive at what is, in reality, the most important part of this entire discussion. Because if we walk away from this topic only fascinated, only intrigued, only entertained by the mystery of where Dajjal may be, then we have missed the entire point. The Prophet did not teach us about Dajjal so that we could become obsessed with hidden geography. He taught us about Dajjal because Dajjal represents one of the greatest fitn, one of the greatest trials that mankind will ever face. The island is not the destination of the lesson, the preparation of the believer is. And this is where we need to be honest with ourselves. So many people love the dramatic parts of eschatology. They love the secret locations, the mysterious signs, the what-if theories, the endless discussions. But the Prophet was not raising a generation of spectators. He was raising a generation of believers who were spiritually ready. He warned us because he wanted us to understand that when Dajjal emerges, the danger will not simply be physical power. It will be deception. It will be confusion. It will be the ability to make falsehood appear as truth and truth appear as falsehood. And that is why this story is not really about an island in the sea. It is about an island of heedlessness that can form in the heart when a person loses clarity, loses knowledge, and loses his connection to Allah. The real protection from Dajjal was never meant to be curiosity. It was meant to be Iman. The Prophet taught us practical safeguards. He taught us to seek refuge in Allah from the trial of Dajjal in our prayers. He taught us the virtue of reciting the opening verses, and in other narrations, the closing verses of Surah Al-Kahf. Why Surah Al-Kahf? Because it is a surah of fitnah and protection. It teaches us about the fitnah of faith, the fitnah of wealth, the fitnah of knowledge, the fitnah of power, every major category of deception that Dajjal will exploit. This is not accidental. The cure was given before the disease appeared, and so when we speak about the history of the island of Dajjal, we must not end with a map. We must end with a mirror. Where are we in our relationship with Allah? How strong is our Iman? How deep is our knowledge? How easily are we deceived by appearances, by trends, by false saviors, by worldly glitter? Because the one who cannot resist the smaller deceptions of this dunya should not feel safe from the greater deception of Dajjal. In the end, the greatest question is not where Dajjal is, but whether, if he came tomorrow, we would be ready to stand against him.